I hope you're all doing well. Happy Friday. I like Fridays. I get to slow it down a little bit, go through what it is that I want to go through. I've been trying to make this video for like 3 days. It just hasn't been working out, but I think I found kind of a new format, a new way to present it, and we'll see how it works out. But regardless, this is something that I absolutely have to cover at length. I have to cover all of it. And it's not all of it. It's just a small fraction of what all of it actually means, but it's kind of a summarization of all of it. I'm going to turn the chat on. I'm going to try not to waste any time at all and jump right in. And I'm going to do that with this from the ACLU back in the day, talking about the Patriot Act, how the USA Patriot Act redefines domestic terrorism. Now, what's up, Retribution? James, I appreciate you guys being here. I've been covering this since, I don't even know how long. Since my existence on YouTube, since my first video, it's very clear. It was clear to me since September 11th what they were doing. They weren't concerned about these cave-dwelling terrorists that had a part in staging one of the most intricate terrorist acts in the entire world, which obviously didn't happen in the way they said, in my opinion. But it was about creating the necessary apparatus to go after the American people. What's up, Jen? How you doing? Good to see you. I can't read you guys' chats that well. That is a problem I've been having. I can read it, so at least we're at a little bit of a better spot than we were last time. And I know you're probably somewhat tired of me talking about this, but hopefully I can present some of the things that are extremely important and consequential in a little bit of a different way, cast it kind of in a different angle, run through a little bit of stuff that's from then up until now, so we can kind of get a more of a broader perspective on what all this really means. How you doing, Shannon? Appreciate you being here. Section 802 of the USA Patriot Act expanded the definition of terrorism to cover domestic as opposed to international terrorism. Now, what was interesting is this Patriot Act was following 9/11, right? I mean, this was all about foreign terrorists. But what the Patriot Act did was turned all of, because the DHS was created because of 9/11. A lot of things were created from 9/11, and it didn't make sense. Because what did it look like to me, and Snowden ended up proving that, right? Edward Snowden and all the stuff that he's brought out since, excuse me, along with Julian Assange's WikiLeaks. Now we know, at least we know a fraction of what it is that they are doing now and were doing back then. And it becomes rather obvious that the whole purpose of all of these agencies and these programs and things like PRISM and stuff like that, well, it was all designed to turn that lens around on the United States citizens. And why would they do that? Well, it's because these people, if you want to call them that, they don't think in terms of a year or two. They've had plans in place for literally hundreds of years. Now, as technology improves over the time, right, they have to revise and edit and make new plans to accommodate the new technologies that they have at their disposal. But that never ends up benefiting us in any way. It only further creates more tyrannical measures to be used against us. And again, this was evident after 9/11, especially when the Patriot Act became a thing. And then after that, there was the Freedom Act, and then the NDAA of 2012. We're going to talk a little bit about that stuff, but I want to kind of just gloss over that because we're all pretty familiar with this. And then show where it's leading now, because I have spent so many hours, so much of my time focused on this aspect. Out of all of the things that I've ever talked about on my channel, I guarantee you that domestic terrorism has more hours and more research behind it than anything else. And that's not by accident, right? That's because I know that the biggest obstacle for this new world order, for this global governance surveillance system, is the American populace, is us, our freedom-loving people that cherish their God-given rights that weren't bestowed upon them, but given to them by their Creator, or they were born with. It doesn't matter what you believe, but it wasn't by a government official with a nice little name plaque on his desk. Do they have more rights than you do? Does one human have more of a say than you? What makes them special and what makes you not? Why do they get certain treatments and certain exemptions and you don't? Are there different classes, or are we all human beings? I don't care like in what class you put them in or what hierarchical system that it was created and constructed. I don't care about governing system. I care about humanity and the fact that we all are human beings. What's up, CMB? Good to see you. Appreciate you being here. So this illusion that we all pretty much abide by, we've come to terms that we have set up a system in this country. We allow a governing body to exist because in order to understand this country, you have to understand where this country came from. People like you and I, think about if everything that's going on right now continues in that trajectory, eventually people are going to get sick of it and they're going to want to leave and go somewhere else. Except, guess what? That's not possible anymore. A couple hundred years ago, it was. So they reached a point of just absolute tyranny. There's a lot involved. This isn't a history class. I'm not going to get into it. I'm sure a lot of you already know. But they were like, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's go set up shop somewhere else. Now, there was two fighting factions, essentially. There was like good and evil. Let's break it down into that. And both of them were trying to get their hands involved into creating this country. And they both essentially kind of succeeded. But it was laid out in a brilliant way where at least the good on this aspect succeeded as so much as to enshrine our freedoms, our rights into the Constitution and create a governing body only to protect those very freedoms. That is why every single government official has to swear an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution against foreign and domestic terrorists or actors or anybody that will do any harm to any of your rights. It's not about being subservient to your government. I don't know how we got here. Well, I kind of do, right? Propaganda, indoctrination, psyops, the typical thing. They've been doing this forever. It's not a new game we're playing. There's nothing new under the sun. But we need to realize that we've gone way too far. There's way too much power in the hands of way too many people. And we need to take back what is rightfully ours to begin with and hold people that have stepped outside the bounds accountable. What I've been seeing across the mainstream media and even in like peer-reviewed papers, journals, things that are coming out on all ends of the spectrum are beyond worrisome at this point. They were worrisome back in 2018 when I was making videos talking about this and where this is leading. It's no longer leading there. We've arrived. We're here. And what I'm seeing is so incredibly nauseating and obnoxious and every single word that is negative I could throw at it. Because really what it means is that we don't have much time before there's a knock at the door. Before there's a justification for something you said, something you posted, some interaction you had, some place you went to and got into a little argument with whoever and they reported you. If you see something, say something. We're at that stage now. And of course it makes perfect sense. It's all Melissa, good to see you. That they would use, this is what I've always stated anyway. I've always said that this is how it would be. That's why when COVID, everybody's like, oh, this is the big one, COVID. I was like, no, COVID is a force multiplier for the world war that we are slowly but surely getting into. Now we've arrived. It doesn't quite look like that yet. I don't know how it wouldn't really, but I guess a bystander that doesn't pay much attention could see it just as a territorial dispute. But that's not at all what this is. This is them making their move. It reminds me of that Maserati commercial. It says, and we come out of the darkness and we strike. And one group has been behind this the entire time, and they continue to be behind it. And I can't sit here silently under the fear that I may be called names. I don't fear that. I've been called every name that they possibly could muster up. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm a right-wing extremist. I'm a what are they all? Nationalist. I'm anti-Semitic. It's something new all the time. It's something that if you happen to have a belief that is outside of what is acceptable to the powers that shouldn't be, then you're labeled as something so they can smear you, so they can slander you, so they can demean whatever it is that you're trying to share, or your purpose for saying whatever you said has less impact. So the Patriot Act, what did it do? Well, it essentially turned all of those wonderful things that they were creating to protect the homeland in on its own citizens. It gave them unbelievably unconstitutional, overreaching rights to eliminate ours. Thank you, Jenna. I really appreciate that. I really do. I try so hard. Like, I see channels all the time being like, hey, I could really use some help here, guys. Donate, blah, 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 blah. I can't really bring it in me to do that. But I am doing everything I can to grow this, and right now it's damn near impossible in the situation I'm in. But I want to, I'm going to leave it there because that's going to end up me doing what I was just saying. So I appreciate it, Jen. Thank you so much for supporting this channel monetarily, and sharing and supporting that way. Those things are so incredibly important. It really is. And I only ask for the one. I do ask for you to share, but I definitely appreciate the other one as well. So all of you that have done that, thank God for you, because you have saved my life more than once. So bless you. God bless you. I appreciate it. Melissa, Jen gives her warmest regards.
Aw, God bless you, Jen. Thank you.
I don't know if you heard it. God bless you, Jen. Thank you. I'm not going to run through too much of the Patriot Act. There's no need. I don't, like I said, I want to keep it rolling. I know I can. Each thing that I cover has an incredible. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. Melissa says, God bless your family, too. So.
God bless you, Melissa. Thank you.
It's that same.
Love your name.
God bless you, and she loves your name. I know you guys know this stuff, but I literally can spend hours on each one of these subjects. On the most minute of things, because so much is just glossed over. Like I'm going to do in this video, and have been doing since the start of my YouTube channel career. It would take, like, just the Patriot Act alone. I could create an entire channel on the Patriot Act. We could get into the nuances, the abstract of all of it. We could get into how this has affected people's lives. You literally could have endless content about any one of these things because they're so far-reaching, so horrendous, and so tyrannical, and it means so much to America and Americans. And that's who we are. It's hard to take pride in this nation anymore, but it's not. Please never get it confused. Our nation is not defined by our government. We, the people, are this nation. The government was only there to uphold and protect our rights, and they're failing. They need to be removed, replaced, and held accountable. One thing at a time. That's a must, though, really. But my point is a lot of this stuff has much more to it than I could just simply say in a video. And that's a lot of times I'll just run through something like I'm going to right now and lead on to the next, hoping that everybody really understands the importance of something so consequential as the USA Patriot Act and what it did, what it allowed the government that was supposed to protect our liberties and freedoms to do to those very liberties and freedoms. So then along came the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012, which was also extremely worrisome and important. Yeah, absolutely, retribution. They're all guilty on, COVID would have put most of them in, according to the Geneva Convention, in prison for life. And then here on local laws, and here in the United States, what they're guilty of and what they've been doing to the people, like, shall not be infringed. Well, everybody that's part of the law, and whoever drafted that legislation, whoever signed on to it, whoever voted for it, these are things that we should be paying attention to in this day and age. The only way to fix this, and we're not going to fix this because we're in the end times, what we can do is that what I always say is we can mitigate. We can make it much less horrendous on us, providing we do the necessary steps. Otherwise, it is absolute carnage and horror. And I don't think anybody wants that, unless you're a psychopathic narcissist that wants to see themselves slaughtering a bunch of people on the 8 o'clock news or something. Other than that, I'm pretty sure that this is not the way that anybody wants to go. So there are steps that we can take. There are measures and things we can do so we can slow this steam-rolling, tyrannical, governing, globalist body from completely destroying and wrecking civilization as we know it. But in order to do so, we absolutely have to be active. We cannot be passive. We cannot sit idly by. We cannot just watch video. We cannot just be observers. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go all out. Like when I say share and stuff like that, that's exactly what it means. It means you got to put in the time. It doesn't have to be much time. You just got to make sure that the stuff that they are suppressing doesn't get suppressed. Because right now, and ultimately always, there is an information war going on. And the ones that are spewing lies all the time have control over all of the means of communication. And the only way past that is to literally go out of your way and to share stuff, and not necessarily links. It doesn't have to be my videos. I say this all the time. This isn't about promoting my channel. This is about whatever you see, anything that's of significance and of importance that you know isn't going to be well received by Big Brother and their propaganda arm. And they shut it down, they fact check it, they censor it, they demonize you, they label you, they do all of the things that we are so accustomed to them doing. And it's been effective, unfortunately. And here we still sit off in a dark little corner on YouTube trying, which don't worry, we don't sit here very long. Longer than I'd like for sure, but indefinite detention, endless worldwide war, and the 2012 National Defense Authorization Act. Now, this is back when the ACLU actually did what the ACLU was designed to do and protect your rights. On December 31st, 2011, President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, codifying indefinite military detention without charge or trial into law for the first time in American history. The NDAA's dangerous detention provisions would authorize the president and all future presidents to order the military to pick up and indefinitely imprison people captured anywhere in the world, including here in the U.S., far from any battlefield, and it doesn't even have to be wartime. The breadth of the NDAA's worldwide detention authority violates the Constitution and international law because it is not limited to the people captured in actual armed conflict, as required by the laws of war under the Bush administration. Similar claims of worldwide detention authority were used to hold even a U.S. citizen captured on U.S. soil in military custody, and many in Congress assert that the NDAA should be used in the same way. The ACLU does not believe that the NDAA authorizes military detention of American citizens or anyone else in the United States. No, of course not. Absolutely. I don't even know why that needs to be printed in black and white. Any president's claim of domestic military detention authority under the NDAA would be unconstitutional and illegal. Yes, it would. But nonetheless, we are inching our way there. And the way that we are even getting closer and closer to that was because of the Patriot Act and their use of the word terrorism and what it means and what is domestic terrorism. And then, as we will get there once again, about the creation of a domestic terrorism unit. And then the DHS and how they are manning it, what kind of resources are going into it, what ultimately are the powers that they have been granted to carry out some of these absolutely unconstitutionally, absolutely tyrannical actions that they're going to. Nevertheless, there is substantial public debate around whether the NDA could be read even to repeal the Posse Comitatus Act, which has been repealed, authorized indefinite. I mean, they've been doing this for quite a long time now. We're a couple of decades in. 9/11 was really the starting point of this major shift. I think it was from the year 2000 to the year 2030. The Rothschild central banking system and all of their billionaire buddies in control of the puppet politicians and Hollywood and the influencers and everything else, had made it a goal that they intended to depopulate the world about 95% or so, create all of the necessary framework and the foundations to build the new world in such a way that we would have absolutely no rights but only be subservient to a higher class, a higher authority that has dictated what it is that we will do, what we will have injected into our bodies, what we will eat, what we won't eat, where we will live, how we will live, what kind of surveillance we will have while we're living there, how many children we will have, all of it. It's all been laid out. The United Nations has it all on their website. Not only them, but many others as well that are a part of this sustainable development programming in the Agenda 2030 and the Agenda 2021. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And we've covered all of the documents. We've seen it black and white as many times as it could possibly take for it to sink in to the masses, to the population. But yet, somehow, we have still arrived at the point where we are now. And that is worrisome because with everything going on, it really shows how effective that their programming absolutely has to be for the writing to be on the wall, no matter which direction you turn. You see the signs, but you can still somehow dismiss them as whatever the media told you to. Oh, yeah, that's fact check false. Well, what do you mean? I seen the video. No, just false. Oh, well, yeah, guys, no, that's not true. I was told it was false. Yeah, but did you see the video? No, it's false. And then they go on and be like, oh, well, I guess the video was fake. No, the video wasn't fake. It's just somebody said it was false, and then you heard them say it was false. And now you're saying it was false, and now it's just false. As an example, of course. And that's not all the NDAA of 2012 did. It did a lot more than that. But this is one of the worrisome ones because, well, domestic terrorism, right? Anti-Semitism. The way things are shaping out right now, well, they're looking pretty damn dire. The Justice Department will create domestic terrorism unit to counter rising threats. Let's take a listen.
Now let's turn to a darker corner of our democracy as it now stands. The Justice Department says it is setting up a new unit to help to counter domestic terrorism. NPR Justice correspondent Ryan Lucas reports.
Testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee, the head of the Justice Department's National Security Division, Matthew Olson, made clear that domestic violent extremists are a source of growing concern.
The threat posed by domestic terrorism is on the rise. The number of FBI investigations over the past 2 years since March 2020 has more than doubled.
It's a threat that has bubbled over into deadly violence across the country, but most notably in the attack 1 year ago on the U.S. Capitol. To help counter this threat, Olson said he's decided to establish a domestic terrorism unit within the Justice Department's National Security Division.
This group of dedicated attorneys will focus on the domestic terrorism threat, helping.
That's a great question, James. That's a great question. All you hear about is our democracy. Guess what? We don't live in a democracy. But if you hear anybody speak about the country in which we live in right now, that's all you're going to hear is democracy this. We're spreading democracy. The reason we're invading Syria, the reason we're invading all of the countries, Lebanon, Egypt, and it goes on and on and on, of course, right? But it was all to spread democracy, even though our country is not a democracy. A constitutional republic is what it is, and it's defined by a very rigorous set of law called the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It is not like, oh, we can just change things willy-nilly because the population, the majority of the population says so. That is akin to the well-known quote, democracy is two wolves and a lamb fighting over what's for dinner.
helping to ensure that these cases are handled properly and effectively coordinated across the Department of Justice and across the country.
The National Security Division helps manage and assist both international and domestic terrorism investigations. Olson said the new unit will augment the work that counterterrorism attorneys in the division already do. The move reflects the importance that the Justice Department under the Biden administration has put on combating the rise in domestic extremism and the concerning increase in political violence. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
So there's that. Now let's get into where we are now, right? The Israel, Hamas, all that, what's going on? What does it mean for everybody that's, well, we're already seeing what's happening. I don't know if I can see if we can listen to this. I haven't seen this yet. Maybe.
Inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out
Yeah, it doesn't look like I can start it over.
attacks against Americans going about their daily lives. That includes not just homegrown violent extremists inspired by a foreign terrorist organization.
Does that sound familiar to you guys? I hope it does, because even before Christopher Wray was sitting behind a microphone saying all of this nonsense, I had been telling you this for years, that this was what they were going to say. Well, like verbatim, word for word. I'm not a prophet. Well, I'm not so sure. No, I'm not a prophet. I just mean, like, how could it be so easy to nail exactly what is coming and what will be said when it comes? Because once you figure out the playbook, once you see what it is that they're doing, and what you see what their end goal is, you know what they're going to do to get there. Because you can see what it is that they're building in the meantime, such as the Patriot Act. They're like, well, we know that they want to depopulate, right? Well, we've heard a bunch of billionaires say that, and they run the world. So if they want to depopulate, they're creating the Patriot Act. How would that possibly tie in? Oh, well, look what they're doing now. They're trying to get the, and then you just keep connecting dots. You keep taking those little puzzle pieces, and you fit them together until they fit nicely. And then you look at it and see what you can see. Yeah, it doesn't form a whole picture yet, but you got an idea that looks like a giraffe leg. And you're like, well, it looks like there may be a giraffe in this picture. And then you get another piece and you're like, yeah, that's definitely a giraffe. But why is there a giraffe in this picture? What are we looking at? Well, giraffes are in safaris. So you can make a guess like this. Where are we? Are we in Africa, or is this? So maybe my next, if I see something about like something not really related to Africa, but it kind of is, I can make a connection because I can see the giraffe. That's how it all is. It's just it's a big game. Essentially, to these people, that's how they're playing it. They're playing us. We're just pawns in it. Pawns that are under their control, and the ones that aren't, well, they need to be knocked off the board. What's up, P4? Yeah, I try to leave that out of it for now. There's a time and a place. But you will know. You will know.
But also domestic violent extremists targeting Jewish or Muslim communities. But as I said a few moments ago, on top of the homegrown violent extremists and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of attacks those would be. I don't know. Maybe they would be cyber attacks. Maybe there'll be attacks on the infrastructure. Maybe there'll be biological releases of certain viruses. Maybe there'll be, I mean, I could only guess, but I assure you that my accuracy rating on those guesses would probably be around the 97.5 and up range, because that's where I'm shooting at right now. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. So they're using this. This is the goal, anyway, of what I'm trying to convey in this article. I don't want to spend too much time on each one unless it's worthy of it, because we could just take it for what it is on this one and say, well, clearly they're using this conflict in the Middle East like they always do, right? Like, oh, well, Osama bin Laden is attached to 9/11 somehow. Okay, well, let's go into Iraq. Well, how the is Iraq tied to Osama bin Laden? Well, we never made that connection, but we think Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, but what's that got to do with 9/11? Doesn't matter, right? Weapons of mass destruction. So they get people on board for this shit regardless, and then they go and kill a bunch of people, a lot of people, and because what? They may not have our skin color, they may not speak our language. Like what drives people to think that this is okay? When I first started seeing this divide between like people that support Palestine and people that support Israel, how sick do you have to be to think it's okay to annihilate masses of people, children, women, men, it doesn't matter, innocent lives, people that have done nothing to you, nothing to their own government, nothing to anybody, but try to live their lives in this ever increasingly shitty world. No, let's just mow them down. Let's bomb them all. Like Benjamin Netanyahu says, we just got to eliminate them. And, it sucks because they're hiding amongst the civilians, but we got to do what we got to do. Well, maybe you shouldn't invaded their land. Maybe you shouldn't occupied another land. Well, I know that's hard for you because you get kicked out of every single country that you go into because you do shit that you shouldn't be doing. What difference at this point does it make, right? I remember her saying that. Hate speech is free speech. Hate speech is free speech. Hadn't had a chance to listen to it yet. Hopefully it works.
Can't go? Do this. Fiber helps you poop, right? Nope. What about drinking lots of water? Nope.
Our Constitution has more extensive protections for free speech than any other liberal democracy. And it protects hate speech. It does not protect speech.
Although she said liberal democracy instead of constitutional republic, which is night and day, let's continue listening.
That can be understood as an immediate incitement to violence, but it does protect hate speech. And I myself believe, although I understand that other people believe differently, that protecting people's rights to say abhorrent things is an important part of the protection of our right of free speech. But I understand.
Yes, of course. Because the reason, again, this is important for people to always remember why you live in this country and why this is the land of the free, or at least was. It's because we are the only country in the entire world that literally puts its people as the ruling factor of the country. There is nothing that the government is able to do that you yourself are not able to do. If they have an army, you can have an army. We are in control of the government. The government only exists as a convenience, as a way where we could pool our money so we can have them carry out the tasks of building roads and bridges. So we could have them taking care of the energy, the electric grid, all of the necessary things that could also be done through capitalism, through private business and ownership and the free market. I'm aware. So were they. So the primary task of that governing body, the government itself, was only to protect the sacred fundamental freedoms of the people of this country. Now, history has shown us that anytime these governments begin to get out of control, early warning signs are that they start suppressing speech. They start disappearing people, which is actually a term used in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. It gives them the ability to disappear people. Fact check me if you think I'm lying. These are warning signs, and they know this. They've lived it when they came here, when they fled from that tyranny and set this country up. They knew that, and it wasn't just one time. It's been the tale as old as time. It's always happened. Every empire, every massive, that's their fall. But before they fall, they get too big for their britches and they become very insecure about their population. They know what they're doing is wrong because once they get too big, they have to find ways to keep them growing, to keep their existence alive. And when it's overflated, conflated, overbloated, when there's all these unnecessary factions of that government, but they all have jobs and they're all going to do whatever it takes for them to find ways to make sure that they continually have a job. Whether that's creating a secondary, subsidiary, governing, so like it goes down and down, trickles down, and next thing you know, there's thousands of these different agencies and task force and all sorts of crazy shit that you and I are paying for. Guess what? The Boston Tea Party, the Tax Act, all that shit, but there was bloodshed over a 1% tax hike. 1%. What are we paying? What are they taking out of your paycheck right now? How much are you paying to that federal government to keep all of their bullshit? I mean, just look at what they're spending on. It is nothing that protects your freedoms and your liberties. Has nothing to do with it. It's about if you give a bird cocaine, does it increase its mating? Like, just dumb shit that they shouldn't be involved in. This is a capitalist nation, and it's that way for a reason. When the government starts handing out money to universities so they can look into things, that makes the university want to do whatever the government wants to do because they get big chunks of change for it. So you can start guiding their principles through that mechanism. You can start making sure that they're only going to educate their students, the future leaders of this country, in a way that benefits them. So you want this grant, you want this handout. Well, we need to know what this ends up happening. And in order to do that, you're going to have to teach your students a little bit about this. And it's an indoctrination program. It's a complete takeover. It's long been taken over. But I understand we've been complacent and asleep for a long time. But it's time to come out of that. All of us. We all need to really wake up and see what's happening. Because that knock at that door that I was talking about is a lot sooner than you realize.
And that our students today, they grew up with instruction against bullying in the public schools. They understand what harassment is. They don't understand why it's not okay for them to say something in a classroom or in a dormitory that someone like Milo can come to campus and say in Zellerbach Auditorium.
I want to push you a little harder, though, on this, because the question is how does protecting Milo Yiannopoulos' right to engage in what I personally actually do think is fairly hateful speech, how does that protect?
So what's the problem? It doesn't matter if it's fairly hateful speech. I can hate any group I want to. There are laws that have already been in place that take care of such a matter. If you can directly incite somebody to, so that means if I want to pay you to do something to cause violence on somebody else, that's illegal. You can't like they always say, shout fire in a crowded theater, that type of stuff. If it is an intimate danger to, if your speech causes imminent danger to anybody around you, that is also illegal. There is nothing new. Now, what they're trying to do, and sneakily, and I haven't seen this yet, so we'll see where this goes. Judging by the way that they said liberal democracy, it may not end up in the way that I thought it would, but we'll see. But hate, I can hate whoever I want. There's no law against that. In fact, that is one of the most protected things. Because guess what? You need to be able to dislike and absolutely hate if necessary. If something is getting so far out of control, if your government or a group of people are doing something that is so outlandish and absurd, well, yeah, I mean, you can't injure them. You don't want to call for something bad to happen to them. But that doesn't mean I have to dislike them at the worst case scenario. No, I can absolutely be repulsed by them and hate them. That is my right. And I can say whatever it is that I want to say outside of calling for harm upon them or that person. This isn't rocket science. There's a reason they're framed in the way that they are and protected in the manner that they were. Anybody that is outside of that is trying to go against it, are either completely brainwashed, which is the majority of them at this point, or the ones doing the brainwashing that are trying to persuade people that this is the way forward. It's just all peace and love. We all need to get like that's. Meanwhile, we're bombing innocent lives all across the world. Murder, 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 kill, death. Peace, love, guys. Peace, love. Okay.
Protect my rights to free speech.
Well, the question is, who's the censor? So if you determine that someone has the right of determining what is hate speech and what is not hate speech, I believe you give a dangerous kind of authority to the government. And
Absolutely.
So someone...
And that's what it's all about, right? That's why we have that First Amendment, is because it has always been abused and will always be used. Wait till you see some of the stuff that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. We've far surpassed that. Now and this is one of their tactics, right? They just automatically assume. It's called assuming the sale. It's actually a sales tactic. But you just assume that everybody already knows whatever it is that you want them to believe. So if you want them to believe that hate speech and saying anything can be illegal, for instance, like let's say you're talking about a group of people. Now, you're absolutely allowed to, I would encourage you to do so. That's our freedom. We should exercise them. Whether it's positive or negative, we should all exercise our freedoms in all which ways possible. But it's when they decide that they're like, oh, well, you know what? We don't like it because it's part of our masters that are running the show here. We can't have our plan called out ahead of time. We need to shut these people up. So they do it little by little, but they'll assume the sale. They'll say like, well, now we know that this isn't okay, but what are we going to do about it? Like, wait, did we ever agree that it's not okay? But that's not how it works. They'll have all the mainstream media outlets all putting out like, yes, this is absolutely wrong and dangerous, but what can we do? Speaking for all of the American populace, as if we were all on board. And then they move a little bit forward and they'll come out with like some bullshit poll, or they'll be like, yes, Americans are crying out saying, how do we stop the hate speech? And now they are, because of the last article that triggered them to believe that. It is effective. I used to use it myself when I was knocking door to door selling steak, chicken, and seafood.
One that is going to censor Milo's right to engage in what we call hate speech today might call hate speech tomorrow something that is, for example, critical of Roy Moore, or critical of the kind of bigotry that you see in some of our far right groups today.
So the
And
danger.
that's also the point of the left-right paradigm that we are now involved in. So not only will they censor, in this case, Emil Yiannopoulos, but also Roy Hart or whatever, who else it was, right? The right and the left. Because, like, I always go back to Trump and Antifa, because everybody at the time was like, no, Trump, 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 Trump. And then they were against all, like these groups. And they were against, like, Obama trying to silence. But Trump was doing the exact same thing, if not worse. He was saying, let's make Antifa a terrorist group. And the argument there is, well, you can't, because Antifa is an ideology. And they did that on purpose, right? So, did it matter to Trump? Because that's part of his game. That was his cards to be dealt. Like, well, we need to do it, right? And he made some progress towards that end. But what happens when the tables are turned? And Biden's able to do that to his MAGA extremists. These are how it's played, right? Like, so yeah, you can agree on one side of it. Oh, yeah, you need to shut them people up. Just like the people that are for Israel right now. Like, you know them. They're the ones that YouTube is allowing them to speak. They're not only allowing, but promoting those videos. You'll see a lot of it, right? You'll see those typical ones where they're like, yeah, but they're, Hamas is a terrorist organization and that we need to stop. But Israel, oh, they're fine. No, they've both been doing the same shit. And I would argue that it's probably the other way around if we really want to look at it. I mean, let's take the Senate real quick. How many Jews are in the United States? I'm not going to answer these questions. I'm just asking them. You can do your homework. How many Jews are in the United States? What percentage is that of the population? How many Jews are in the Senate? Now, what is a senator? Are they not a representative of their constituency? So, you would assume that their constituency, how many senators would reflect how many, at least vaguely, right? It doesn't have to be dead on, but when you see a 1,400% increase, clearly something's up. They have their control mechanisms, and why wouldn't they? They've been in charge of the banking systems that have loaned money to the governing bodies. But that's what we're going to be getting into. The point here is it'll always be used against us. It's never going to be. They're always going to try to keep us fighting. They're always going to try to keep us arguing against each other. And they're always going to try to get us to beg for the chains of our own enslavement. By pointing the finger to the other color, to the other side, and saying, no, get rid of their rights. Pass a law, make legislation to get rid of their rights. You're all a bunch of fucking Americans. You think whatever happens to them isn't going to happen to you? You don't think the tables are going to turn in the next election or the election after that? And you don't think, no, they know, but the people don't. That's the problem. The people should be the ones in power, in control, with the knowledge, accordingly, to do the simple things that need to be done so we don't continue fighting each other and hold the people that are trying to do this to us accountable. Once people start waking up to this, you won't be able to not see what they're doing. They're doing it everywhere all the time. And it has gone through the roof since October 7th.
Danger is that one person's hate speech might be another person's valid criticism of somebody else. And since it's very hard to make the distinction, therefore we have to say, even when we think that it looks like hate speech to us, we need to allow it to make sure we protect the right of the person who would have a valid criticism that others might think is hate speech.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. But that's not what they want from us. They'd rather just eliminate both of them. Case in point. House passes resolution disavowing anti-Semitism. What does that mean? What does that mean? How does the House, who is our representatives in the government, to disavow anti-Semitic? No, I don't. I'm sorry, that's not okay. I don't care what you exchange anti-Semitism for. You could put whatever group you want. We have the rights. That is unconstitutional. Doesn't matter. There's certain groups that are allowed to do something. That's why I put that. What was it? If you want to know, this was the Voltaire quote. That's not Voltaire. Apparently, the mainstream media says this was from a 1993 neo-Nazi, all of a sudden. Because Voltaire didn't say these exact words, but it was Voltaire. And it's, if you want to know who rules over you, simply realize who it is that you are not allowed to criticize. House passes resolution disavowing anti-Semitism. During COVID, they were setting up a lot of strange stuff in New York City. These reimagining education with Cuomo. And some of the curriculum, not only the curriculum, but some of the people that were behind it really started raising eyebrows. Now, that got set on the back burner. I haven't heard much about it since because people started being like, wait a minute. This seems like the Israelis are here trying to brainwash our students and paid off Governor Cuomo. I made a couple of videos about it at the time, but it was very strange. But that's typical. This is one group that has inserted themselves into the upper echelon, and they have done that because they're at the pinnacle of the monetary system. And as such, well, money talks. You can allow or bribe or coerce your buddies to be in prominent positions. Now, this takes time, over time, to get all the key positions that you so think you need in order to continue what it is that you had first set out to achieve. But once you think you're confident enough that you have, well, we got 1,400% representation in the Senate, for instance, Hollywood, all of the markets. I mean, look at the CEOs of all the major, Jesus. We just can't, you can't say it. You can't talk about it. You can't call a spade a spade. That is what every major governing body, government has done right before some seriously dark times have occurred. Before genocide, usually, or democide. They start saying, well, hey, you know what? You could say a little bit, but don't you dare talk about this, whatever this is. And they don't waste time. They do not waste time once they start this the area, how do I put this? Where we are now, where we have just recently arrived, I would say October 7th, really, right? Because I've been saying, for a long time now, I've been saying, we're getting close, guys. And then I think this year, 2023, I'm like, yeah, guys, we're here. Like, you could see it. It's all over the place. But not, like, I wasn't like, we're here. No. Now, for real, seriously, 1,100,000,000%, October 7th, there is no doubt anymore. It's not like, yeah, this is we've crossed the line. Now they're doing exactly what all of these other countries and leaders and empires have done throughout time, right before mass death occurs. Now, again, there's not much you're going to do to stop it. Some things must come to pass. But would you spare the nation? Would you spare the people if I can find 5? Anybody know what I'm talking about? And the Lord said, if you bring me 5, I will spare them. Seems how there's so many people that love to talk about it. What do you know? House lawmakers approved a resolution condemning the support of terrorist organizations and anti-Semitism on college campuses on a 396-23 bipartisan vote. The resolution I'm glad you threw that in there. You remember the guy's name? 5 Righteous Men, yeah. I figured Melissa and Jen would have it. Job. Remember? This shit sickens me, man. It really does. What's happening right now, and it's all right under our faces. Right beneath us. It's happening right now, and we're here once again. How many times do we have to go through, this is not good. Not good. Oh, I wanted to watch this. Hopefully it's
This week, the FBI director warned of a heightened risk for potential violence against Arab, Muslim, and Jewish Americans in the wake of the Israel-Hamas war. Laura Barone-Lopez starts our conversation about the rising threats with a look at a new White House effort to counter Islamophobia.
Jeff, the White House is working on a first-of-its-kind strategy to protect Muslims and those perceived to be Muslim because of their race or ancestry. And it says the plan will be drafted by White House officials in coordination with community leaders. Rami Nabashibi, founder of the Inner City Muslim Action Network, joins me now to discuss. Rami, thanks so much for being here. First off, what's your reaction to this announcement by the White House to craft a national plan to counter Islamophobia?
The announcement is actually one that the community completely can understand and appreciate. The timing, though, was one that I have been on record for challenging, only because at this moment, so much of the anti-Muslim hate and Islamophobia is directly associated with the dehumanizing language that unfortunately has become part and parcel of this absolutely terrible bombing on Gaza in the last few weeks that has led to a child being killed every 10 minutes.
And speaking of that, Rami, last week when I asked President Biden about the death toll provided by the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry, which is a figure that State Department officials also go by, he cast doubt on it.
I
Yeah,
have no notion that the Palestinians are telling the truth about how many people are killed. I'm sure innocents have been killed, and that's the price of waging a war.
You were in a meeting with the president.
That's the price of waging a war. We've heard that before. We've heard that before. What's her name? Somebody may know. This was during the Iraq, well, not during, it was like slightly after we were coming to terms that we were all lied to about going into war over weapons of mass destruction, and we found out that there was like 300,000 innocent people killed. And they asked a lady, I forget her name right now, it's on the tip of my tongue, and they said, was it worth it? And she says, you know, it wasn't an easy blah, 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 but yeah, we think the price was worth it. Meaning that the death of hundreds of thousands of innocent people was worth the lie for them to achieve whatever the fuck it was that they wanted to achieve. Because you mean nothing to them. You are just a number. You are cannon fodder. And go ahead, run to the voting booths and try to find someone that has your interests and will do a better job next time.
President, not long after he made those comments, did he say anything that reassured you during that conversation?
Well, I directly, in fact, addressed that quote with the president. I told him how unacceptable and atrocious it was, quite
Madeleine
frankly,
Albright.
for so many that have
Madeleine Albright. Thank you, brother.
associated him with a person who can really identify with human suffering, which I think he has done fairly well for communities across the globe, and certainly with people who have suffered from individual tragedy. He acknowledged that. He received it. He also gave us a form of an apology. What I was hoping to hear from the president and from the White House, quite frankly, which we have not heard since our meeting last week, was a much more explicit, forceful retraction of that type of language, because it is precisely that type of language coupled with the silence on language that has been used by Israeli war.
How many times is he saying language? Are you getting the message? Combating hate is the name of the segment. Language, language, language. And then as we will see as I continue through this video, what ultimately that means.
Ministers, like the defense minister who called all Palestinians human animals, that has perpetuated this form of utter...
Oh, so calling people human animals, although protected under your First Amendment rights, that can lead to violence now, right? Because this is, you gotta stop paying. There's two things you need to pay attention to and disregard at the same time when they're talking about this stuff. You need to pay attention to what it is that they're trying to achieve, what associations are being made. And in this case, it's language and hate. You need to disregard the fact that there is any, you should disregard it all. I can literally just sum it up as that. Because if some dumbass out there decides that they want to shoot somebody up or do something horrible because you called somebody an animal, that's on them. That's not on you. And they are the ones to carry the brunt of that. They're the ones that should be charged. Like, you have the ability, just because you say something that may or may not be true. If somebody takes that and that, because this is the case that they're trying to make as a whole. And I'm going to give you their argument on this right now. Their case is, if you criticize or demonize a group of people or a person or something. Now, the DHS has already put bulletins on. We've covered this like a year and a half ago, But actually, I've been covering this for about 7, 8 years since the first time I've seen it. Their argument is DHS is already on board. They're already trying to pass legislation and resolutions. And it's about incitement, right? Because we know the FBI and the DHS has changed their definition of the word violence. Violence no longer means actual violence. Violence means it could be incitement of. So now, since then, and I said this is what we would see, and we are, and we're seeing a lot of it now, of course. Oh, so, and this guy just gave a perfect example of it. Well, they're calling them animals, right? So it gives them a less of a humanity, so it's easier to kill them. So what's the point? What's the point of this whole segment? Eliminating hate. How do we do that? Well, there's only free speech. No, it's hate speech, right? It's not free speech, it's hate speech. Even though it's protected, even though you're allowed to call a group of people fucking animals, pardon my language, it frustrates me. It won't be. It won't be. So you will only be able to say bad things about pre-approved people that your mainstream media will surely tell you about with the marching orders from the government or the United Nations or the World Economic Forum, depending on how far we allow this to go. Which I don't see much resistance, so it looks like it's going all the way, which is going to be extremely bad for all of us. But that is the argument. What are we allowed to say? Because if we can say something negative about a group of people and somebody can take that and be like, well, they're less human, and that therefore I feel justified into carrying out such an act against them, then should we or should we not have laws in place to protect these people from that type of language? What type of language? Language, you mean? Just free speech, you mean? Should we eliminate free speech is what the argument boils down to. And when that happens, let history be a guide to what happens next.
Utter dehumanization of Palestinians that completely is associated with much of the spike in violence that many people in the community have unfortunately had to endure.
I'm sorry, I should have just let it play for literally 4 more seconds and he would have just said all that shit for me.
This recent set of few days and weeks.
Rami, since that meeting with the President Biden has called for a humanitarian pause. He did that just yesterday. Do you agree with that?
I think, we asked him to call for a ceasefire. We are very grateful. I live in a state where Senator Durbin has become.
Moving on. A new wave of anti-Semitism threatens to rock an already unstable world. So it seems to me that it's fine. It doesn't matter if you talk about, I don't know, Swedes, Finlands, Canadians, Mexicans. There seems to be one group in particular, right? Because it's not, there's people being slaughtered right now in Africa, people being slaughtered in Syria. Now, I can talk as much shit about them as I want. But this group on the other hand, well, you talk about them, you're going to rock an already unstable world. Okay. All right.
Niece, you are 6. I'm not 6. What do kids like? No clue. Lots of junk, generic toys, forgettable garbage. But what about Etsy? That's cute. Personalized jacket. I win. Personalized gifts under $50. Etsy has it.
No.
Don't worry about
Okay, you'll be all over the news.
Don't worry about it.
All over the news.
In New York City, an ugly confrontation over the removal of a poster of one of the hostages kidnapped from Israel.
You're so
Oh, by the way, have you guys seen the pro-Israel signs about Palestinians that are on the back bordered with razor blades? Is this the actions of a good group, of a peaceful group? They're literally in this country. There are flyers like you would hang on a phone pole for a lost dog that are covered in razor blades. So when you go to remove them, you slit your fingers all up. Now that is definitely the move of a very kind, caring, compassionate group of people. Has anybody ever seen that before from anybody ever? Or does these things continually boil down to one group in particular? You can slaughter as many people as you want because what? Holocaust?
surprised and show your face. Show your face. You are not allowed to post. Yes.
After a few moments, the people walked away from the scene.
Good luck. Shame on you.
That's Broadway producer James Simon using scissors to take down a poster showing one of the more than 200 hostages. After removing the poster, Simon crumpled it up and tossed it in the garbage. When the New York Post published the video, Simon told the Post he took down the flyers for the purpose of keeping the city's streets clean and not for anti-Semitic reasons. Oh. According to the Post, he also apologized for offending anyone. CNN reached out to Simon but did not receive a response. The posters were designed by a few Israeli artists who were visiting New York City when Hamas gunmen attacked Israel. They said,
Israeli artists, where have we heard that before? Does anybody listen? Pardon my language, guys. I am a vulgar person. I've just come right out with it. And I try to keep it under wraps for my videos, but it leaks out sometimes. But brownie points for whoever can think about the last time we heard about Israeli artists on a big, big situation. An Israeli art group. I think they were like art students, if I can recall. Yeah, 9/11. Right. Good job. I don't see much from you, Mike. Welcome. Glad you're here.
They say they identified 220 hostages and confirmed their names with their families before making the flyers, but that they never expected their work to become a flashpoint, like this incident at Boston University, after a student who said she is Jewish took down a poster.
Why are you filming?
Because...
What's your point?
What? To show where all of the hate is coming from in this campus. Most Jewish students don't feel safe.
You're supporting occupation. An illegal occupation.
Yeah, you know your stuff, man. Respect.
For 75
it's about
years.
You're not condemning terrorists? That's wrong. You should be ashamed of yourself.
On what appears to be a campus in San Diego, watch as one man tries, unsuccessfully, to block another from ripping down the posters with hostages' images.
Bother me? You can't stop me by taking
Now, this is happening all across the nation, this type of shit. They got us once again pinned against each other. I was in the car with my mother today, and she buys it. She thinks she's awake, and I hope she doesn't watch this video. But she buys into the Benny Johnsons. What's the other guy's name? Melissa, you know? She talks to mom all the time. Probably not. He was on Fox News. He's like, kind of got an Indian like a Native American complexion. Dan Bongino. Now, these people provide enough. What's up, Morgan? Good to see you. Glad you could join. Appreciate it. Now, she's obviously had to deal with me, her, and my entire life anyway. So she is very aware of certain aspects of things. However, she has never quite escaped the matrix because she can get sucked right back into it through these people like Dan Bongino that say things that are like, they seem like, oh, well, they're going against the mainstream, like we are on the fringe, you know. But the other side is doing the exact same thing. And it's just further polarizing them. And this is showing itself in public now. This is, I mean, how, of course it's going to. This can only foment for so long. You can only build this type of tension up before you start seeing it spill over. And it's unfortunate because it's all by design. None of this is genuine or organic. They have pitted us once again. Oh, Palestinian. Oh, right wing. I mean, Palestinian would be left wing versus right wing would be Jews. Is how they're trying to frame it. The problem is with that is they've already spent a lot of time trying to put people under the QAnon umbrella, which we've covered years ago in 2018, 2019, where you could believe in, doesn't matter really your politics, but if you're aware of certain conspiracy theories, which have since turned out to be absolutely true, like usual, well then the media, being the propaganda arm of the military industrial complex, have already put you under the far-right extremist category. Even though you may not belong there, you may have just as much disdain for the far right or right as you do for the far left or left. Because if you can attach yourself to a team and disregard your other human beings because they have a difference of opinion, then you're being controlled. And that's what we're seeing. We've been seeing it ever since. And it's only escalated. They only have been building upon this, but it gets a little tricky now because, well, there's those same right-wing extremists that aren't really right-wing, such as myself. Now, they've definitely deemed me as such, but I am not right-wing at all, nor am I left-wing. I'm an anarchist, so I don't fit neatly into any of those categories. So, and I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that... So what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of these far-right voices being like, wait a minute, man, I don't agree with this shit. I don't support Israel. That gets kind of messy, and the mainstream media is going to do everything they can to kind of try to cover that stuff up. But it's going to come out in the wash regardless, and it'll be interesting if it makes it that far. Now, the way they could prevent that from happening, major psyop. Now, we're due for a major psyop. I am so late. I am so incredibly late on that last prediction. Part 2 of the January 6th saga. It's coming, and part 2 is going to be part 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, etc. It'll be multiple things that will be the second part, but why I say the second part of the and I predicted this before January 6th, by the way. This isn't me like developing this after that happened. I said January 6th would happen absolutely, exactly, basically like it did. I absolutely, basically, but almost exactly like it happened. I was a day off, definitely laid out 99% of exactly how it went down. And it did. And I knew it was going to be turned around a little bit at the time on QAnon. They dropped that chip, though. They'll pick it back up, maybe. We'll see if QAnon gets brought up again when these other things start happening, such as the attacks on the infrastructure, attacks on the electricity grid, things like that, right? It'll be foreign assets, people from, I don't know, Iran or maybe even Palestine that have crossed the border illegally, because that's, of course, they're going to use that one, right? That's why they're doing this. And then it's going to be like, well, they got, they had common ground and they were working together. They both had common grievances against the government and they were going to try to whatever. But the DHS has already, since I've warned about that, the DHS has, after me, I was happy about that. So I made like countless videos, probably like 5 or 6 after that happened. I was like, I said it first. You want a DHS bulletin? You better get it from me first, because that was kind of the attitude. Arrogant, yes, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So, but it's not a joke. It really isn't. I mean, this stuff's really going down. These people are really at odds with each other. When I had to hear, and nothing against her, but this is the information that she's susceptible to. She doesn't go digging. She does have the time, but does she have the ambition? Does she have the drive? Does she have even the know-how? And this is my mother, who I have obviously the utmost respect for. So I'm not saying if it could be my own mom, then it could be anybody and everybody that falls back into these games of me versus them versus me. Because they choose the sides for us and they hope we attach to them sides based on our political ideologies. Meanwhile, they're collecting all of the data that they possibly can. And they know exactly whose doors they're knocking on first, depending on how passive they are, depending on how much they buy into these media-created narratives, government-created narratives, depending on they know what they're doing. They have all of the tools at their disposal to collect that kind of thing. And what worries me the most is we've crossed that line. This isn't like, this is going to happen. It's already happening. These things are already happening. They're already FBI agents. They're already raids being done. This is already turning into an ideological battlefield. And who is it? It's people versus the people. While we're yelling at each other, harming one another, committing violent acts on our brethren, the ones that are behind it all are sipping cognac and smoking cigars in a dark lit room with all the other scumbags that are doing it along with them. Borders be damned.
I'm not vandalizing. You really put up this.
Beyond the posters, tensions are rising on college campuses over the war. At Tulane University, a brawl broke out after a pro-Palestinian demonstrator tried to burn an Israeli flag. At Cornell University, Jewish students were threatened with death over the weekend, according to the Cornell Daily Sun. And at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a pro-Palestinian rally clashed with supporters of Israel.
Let them live. Let Gaza live.
All of this has communities on edge and businesses on edge. In Miami, a dentist was fired from his job after being captured on camera, tearing down one of the kidnapped posters and crumpling it up. He told reporters his intent was to promote peace and de-escalate the situation. He told CNN,
I've been wrongfully mislabeled many things, and I find it very disheartening to be mislabeled as anti-Semitic when I come from a Semitic background.
with each poster that comes down, the artists making them tell CNN they promise to put up 10,000 more. Randy Kay, CNN.
Well. Oh, is this Janet Yellen? Oh, I gotta play this one, guys. I didn't plan on this, but we gotta let the beast, the reptilian beast.
Hurry up! We're gonna miss first chair.
This one next?
Yeah, we're gonna be late.
Has anyone seen my old ski suit?
Just wear the new
I
one.
don't want to wear the new one.
Oh, no. You go back.
Yeah.
Dad's in your car, right?
No, I thought he was with you.
Dad! Who's ready to shred some pow?
Laura.
Don't forget, BMW Road Home Sales Event is on now. Hurry in for a credit of up to $3,000 on select models now through November 30th.
The GOP-led House just passing a $14.3 billion aid to Israel bill, a bill that...
You guys love working? You love busting your ass? Grinding your fingers to the bone every day? You love how 35% of that gets taken out by the federal government? Do you love how much money is being sent over of your hard-earned money to these other countries? Meanwhile, let's look at Chicago. Let's look at Detroit. Let's look at New York. All across the United States, we can't keep our own infrastructure up. Could it be more obvious what the intentions are? Was this country not in the crosshairs to burn? Because if they really intended on saving it, would we be letting it just crumble away? No, I haven't checked the Telegram. Thank you for reminding me. I've been so busy, guys. I'm trying to work. I'm just trying to work to survive at this point. If you guys knew the situation I was in, it's not. I pray that none of you ever have to go through a similar situation. It's like a trap. I'm paying for my living situation. I'm paying like $2,000, $2,100. That's like your rent. Let's think of it like that. It's like $2,100 for rent right now. I make like $17.50 an hour. I'm not loaded. I work as many hours as I can. All right, that's besides the point. I'm not trying to get off on that shit. I don't have time. When I get home, it's like I already have stuff on my mind because when I'm at work, I'm thinking about everything I can. I'm like, all right, man, I'm trying to connect dots, right? I'll bust out my phone when I have a quick chance and oh, if something comes in my, I'm like, yeah, let me see if this makes sense. And if I could do this full time, that's why if we can somehow, and we will, I don't know how, but we will eventually break through this. And when I'm able to do this full time, it's going to be a different game. But for right now, I can only do what I can do. So if I fall behind on the emails, if I fall behind in the Telegram, if I fall behind, I'm just doing everything I can. It's only one of me. I wish I could do more. I really, really, really do, but I just can't yet.
That has no funding for the Ukraine war against Russia, and a bill that has $14.3 billion in IRS cuts that new Speaker Mike Johnson says offset the aid. 12 Democrats joined most Republicans to pass it. The bill, of course, may go nowhere in the Senate, where Democrats and even some top Republicans want Ukraine aid included. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spoke with us earlier, and I began by asking her whether the House bill is a non-starter.
Absolutely. I think it's an irresponsible bill, tying support for Israel, lacking support for Ukraine, which are both vital national security interests, and then tying aid for...
How the hell is Ukraine a national vital security? Are we still supposed to believe that Russia is like the new Nazi Germany, according to our history books, that is just going to, they were going to take Crimea, then they're going to take Ukraine, then they're going to go after give me a break, man. We've heard Putin. We hear, We are the monsters. The United States is the aggressors. We're the imperialists. We have been so for 60 plus years, 70 plus years. And since the CIA has been created, I mean, it's and they have all the power. Guys, wait, you think the technology that is being, it already exists. We've seen what happened in Maui. But all forms of technology, whether it be biological, whether it be chemical, whether it be nano, whether it be AI, whether they're building everything around us, a technological prison system. And while they depopulate us, the ones that manage to skate through have a wonderful life awaiting them ahead. No, Margellans, I just read your comment. Don't listen. That's life. There's no pity there. I don't want, like, it's just the way it is. Just the way it is. Like, you don't grow unless you go through things. And I've gone through a lot, but I've also grown a lot. Yeah, it does suck.
The only gainers from that are wealthy tax cheats and corporations that will pay fewer taxes that they owe because the IRS will be deprived of $14 billion.
You guys believe in lizard people? How many people? Put a one in the room if you believe there's some lizard ass people, and put a 0 if you don't. It's Friday. I got all day. I'll wait for the responses. We're 50-50. Yeah, I believe too that there are some lizard ass people out here. I've seen too much, man. I've been doing this a long, long time, and I know how crazy it sounds. Like like your David Icke stuff, right? You want to kind of distance yourself from that, but that's by the programming. That's how brilliant it is, and that's how good of a job they do. Just like what they're doing right now. Yeah, so that's one and the same. It's one and the same. So so we're talking about interdimensional, not extraterrestrial. That's a common misconception I think that people fail to grasp. I think people think aliens instead of demons, when demons and aliens are the same thing, but we're not talking about different land, we're talking about different dimensions, different laws of physics. Yeah, of course. Of course. But everybody's safe here. Other than the couple of feds that follow me, but if you're here, you're already on a list, so wear it as a badge of honor.
Dollars of money for tax enforcement. The Congressional Budget Office estimated that loss of $14 billion would result in almost twice that, around $27 billion of reduced tax revenues. So overall, cutting funding for the Internal Revenue Service doesn't cut the deficit, it raises it substantially.
I'm sorry, man. I'm not the type to normally make fun of people, but something is wrong with that lady. She does not strike me as human. And Biden, have you guys seen, like, when Biden's got like them blacked out eyes? Not the masked Biden where they like throw him in a convenient place to give a message. But like the old school Biden. The one that sold his soul to the government years ago for like $3 million. Who knows, man? I do. Call hate hate. McKinney. Oh, not McKinney. Everybody loves McKinney. Slams White House for not calling anti-Semitic threats domestic terrorism. I mean, what are these threats? Because if they were threats, like threats is defined, but no, just like violence no longer means violence, threat no longer means threats. What they're saying is if you criticize the Jews, you're a domestic terrorist. That's where all this is leading. How can we not see as above, so below? This is one of their universal laws that they abide by. Oh, the Jews, the Holocaust, 6 million killed. How could this ever be? Can you not see the way that this will be flipped on its head in the next time? Because you may not believe it does not mean that they don't. They take all of this very, very seriously. No, it doesn't. Retribution, you're absolutely right. It's the Luciferian doctrine version of love. And it's all that's where we're stepping into. We are stepping into the end times. I try to keep like the religion out of it. It's not really religion. It is what it is, but I try to leave a lot of that out of it when I do these things because I'm concerned about facts. I'm concerned about it. And I don't want to lose people in that type of thing. But yeah, absolutely. Oh, another video? Give me a. Oh man, I'm hitting the gold.
But first, we begin with the White House's refusal to classify violent anti-Semitic threats as domestic terrorism.
Now that's Trump's lady there, right? That's Trump's Jen Psaki. Have you guys heard what Trump was saying recently about it? Just another pawn, guys. Just another pawn. Like, I remember back during the QAnon days when it was like really, and everybody was like, no, Trump's going to save us. He was like, they thought literally people were being arrested inside the White House. They thought the Capitol building during these like congressional hearings and shit were being raided because there would be like 4 Capitol police cars parked outside. They're like, no, it's going down. It's going down. Yeah, no, I understand. Like his mugshot, Trump's mugshot, what a psyop that was. They're like, oh, this backfired tremendously. No, it did exactly what it was intended to do. Garnered a ton of support for his base. So when either one of two options happen, A, we're in war and the Democratic Party or the Biden administration decides, hey, a horse midstream or how's it go? You cannot change a horse midstream, meaning like we're in the middle of it. We're going to postpone the election just like Zelensky just did, right? The people, we're paying a ton of money for that piece of shit to limit people's speech, to deny them actual democracy that we're spreading so fiercely throughout the world. None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. I could go on another tangent about that, but it's not nothing you guys haven't heard before. So, like I said, my intention was to try to keep this a little briefer. Though I do have time, I still got stuff to cover.
Terrorism. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kaylee McEnany here with my co-host Emily Campagno and Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Restoring America editor for the Washington Examiner and senior fellow for
Not wasting it on Fox News, that's for sure. I'm not sure what I'd rather watch. If I was forced for the rest of my life to sit down in a room and they were like, you have one of two options. You can sit there and watch CNN day in and day out, or you can watch Fox News day in and day out. What would you choose? Yeah, I know. I'd throw the TV out if that was an option, but that's not the option. Yeah, that's what my wife just said, more gallons. She said I'd throw my TV away. That's not an option. I said one of two options. Great minds think like mine. I know. Shit. I thought, right, man. I would think Fox, but Tucker Carlson is gone. Now, I know Tucker Carlson is obviously a CIA agent, but CNN is almost more entertaining to me because it's so much more in your face. You know what I mean? It's so much. But for the rest of my life, constant beratement might do mental damage. So that's a tough decision, right? Like, you're going to have to deal with them literally calling you an enemy of every person in the entire world for the rest of your life. Or you're going to have Fox News saying, like, you're on the right track, but you're still an enemy of the state somehow. Yeah. You guys are awesome. I didn't even go through that article. We just swept right on over it. The thing is, I have a secondary video already lined up. Like something that like slowly switches into the technology side, and then like if I could do this full time, we would gradually make our way into some crazy technologies that allow this type of stuff to happen inside of our brains. With like you know, I cover it all the time, and then it would be edited nice. Like I can't wait. It will happen. It's just we got a little time. We got a lot of. Unfortunately, it's going to be like 19 months and 19 months. Yeah, it does to me too. All right, so it's the skyrocketing slurs, racism, and anti-Semitic content on Twitter may encourage domestic terrorists. Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is mainstream media, the propaganda arm of the military-industrial complex, letting you know right now. Pay attention. Skyrocketing slurs, protected. Racism, protected. Anti-Semitic content, protected. On Twitter, may encourage domestic terrorism, not protected, illegal, completely outlandish. So your protected rights lead to unprotected absolute catastrophes that all of the arms of the government are going after, right? Terrorism, terrorism, terrorism. So your protected speech leads to terrorism, is what they're telling you. If you say the wrong shit, violence is inevitable, according to their words. Quote, unquote. That sums up everything I was just telling you. We're seeing it right now. This is what I mean. Right now. This is happening. This isn't a joke. Although I make a little bit of light out of the situation. This is very serious stuff, guys. Yours truly. These two thumbs right here. Who do you think will be the first to go? Who would they round up? Who's the most dangerous? Is it the ones that are on the left or the ones that are on the right that are completely controlled and buying into the game? Or is it the ones that think outside the box, that are ones that are trying to expose the truth? The ones that are continually labeled as conspiracy theorists and dangerous? The ones that are on the top of the FBI's 2019 threat list? The ones that are at the DHS? The ones that they continually make bulletins about? Could it possibly be any of them? Or is it just going to be the right-wing extremists, the Trumpists, the MAGA crowd? Half of the damn country. No, but they want it to look like that because they want the Civil War. But who are they really going to be going after is the question. Certainly not half the country. Despite Elon Musk's insistence to the contrary, researchers have found anti-Semitic and racist slurs have skyrocketed on Twitter since its takeover. Well, when you call everything anti-Semitic, and increasingly so, I would imagine that would be the case with experts, always the experts, always the experts. You can count on these. Baseless claims and the experts. Baseless claims and the experts. Anytime you're reading something that says baseless claims and also has the experts, whatever it is that they're telling you isn't true, you better do your due diligence and go look, because I bet you it is. I'd bet a lot of money that it is. Not that I have a lot of money to bet. And I'm not feeling the reading part. In the week since Musk completed his $44 billion acquisition of the social media platform, researchers from the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which is worse than the ADL, and the Anti-Defamation League, which is the ADL, and other groups have found posts including slurs and white nationalists. What's a white nationalist? Oh, you live in America and you like the country? That's what it means. Oh yeah, you gotta be white. Racist, anti-Semitic, or far-right content have risen. It's everything you've been saying would happen is happening. Go figure, DHS. You want to just make a bunch of terrorists out of nobody. You're on the right track. You build a bunch of FEMA camps. They've been existing. They've been sitting idly by for a long time. I'm sure you want to give a reason that them staffers are being paid to do their job. Give them a reason to be there. Well, seems like you're on the right track. The Center for Countering Digital Hate found in the week immediately following Musk's takeover that the use of the N-word tripled freedom of speech. I don't agree with it. Yeah, that's what they mean, guys. Hate. So, in order to get rid of this hate, something must be done. In order to stop these mass shootings, something must be done. If only we can eliminate the First and Second Amendment. And then the Fourth, then the 13th, then the... Where does it end? It doesn't. It doesn't end until you are completely subservient, which you will be, or you'll be dead. How many boosters you got? How many do you want? How many do you not want? And how many will you be forced to get? You like beef? Here's some crickets. Yeah, morals and dogma, absolutely. Absolutely. And rules for radicals. Man, you guys are on top of it. You're such a brilliant group. I really appreciate reading your guys' comments. I often go back after the fact because I learn so much from you guys. I really do. I go through the emails and stuff. I get such great links. You guys are on top. You really are on top of it. That's why you're here. Like all of us as a group, as a team, I guess you could say. Although I'm sure it was labeled a little bit differently a long time ago. And there's more out there, by the way. This isn't your whole family. You may never know them unless you really start putting the effort out there to make sure to get the content. Trust me. Don't. Now, it's not for everyone, but it is for some. I don't know, 144K maybe. I'm going to get wrapping it up here in a minute, guys. I mean, I could just go on and on and on to prove this point, but I think you guys get it. Most dangerous threat to America. And don't forget that the DHS listed, literally, Homeland Security listed pro-life moms as radicalization suspects. And radicalization is on the same page as the domestic terror threat list is. So be careful. Be careful out there. It's getting dark. Bring a flashlight. I'm going to wrap it up. Before I go, is there anything you guys want to ask? Anything you want to talk about? And nothing else, James. Because diamond will wear iron out. That's a damn good quote you just put there, but you should not that I'm not saying you haven't, but you should give it a lot of thought what that really means. In every possible way. I'm not saying you didn't. But there's more, there's a lot. Some of the most brilliant 3 words that mean a tremendous amount. It's like a novel in 3 words. No, thank you, Morgellons. Thank you all. I appreciate all of you so incredibly much. I really do. And I know it sounds cliche. It even might sound a little crazy when I say it. Like, we're on a mission here. There's things that must be achieved. We have a job to do here. And we're going to do it. I'm going to wrap it up. I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you all have a good night. Good day tomorrow. I really enjoy the weekend. God bless. Much love. Peace.